Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kyle Suggs, where we take culture, TV, and movies, and we filter it right. And today is Sunday. It's the last day of Star Wars Celebration. And me, as a huge Star Wars fan, and this channel still dealing with TV and movies, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I feel social justice warriors have taken the Star Wars franchise and utterly destroyed it. Okay? And so part of the reasons why I'm in bed is because I just don't feel excited enough to get out of it and put the camera up and get the lighting. I am mic'd though. I do have a microphone on, so that's at least semi-professional here. I do care enough about at least the audio, but that's about it. I watched the Star Wars trailer when it came out. I think it was Friday it came out. And I saw it. It was sort of cool, but I was a little underwhelmed. See, I understand the backstory that I'm going to talk about a little bit here. I'm going to reference some of the heavy lifting to some of the people who do it better, Geeks and Gamers and Midnight's Edge. They have some really good videos, and I'll let them delve into the meat of the issues. I'm going to explain it to you the best way I know. I may get some of the facts wrong, and I may get some of the timetables wrong, but this is totally unscripted. I wasn't planning on doing this. I did want to do a video on Star Wars, but I decided, you know what? As I was getting into it, I was looking at the timelines, and it would have been a video that would take me at least 4 to 5 hours to produce. And being a Sunday, and I got family, we're at vacation at the Suggs retreat, I decided that I just don't have the time, or it's not really even the time. I can make the time for it. I just don't have the excitement level to do it because I know all of what's happened. And let's dive into that right now. So 1997 was the beginning of the Force Awakens. I'm sorry, that was not the Force Awakens. 1997 was the beginning of the prequels. Okay, that was The Phantom Menace. That was a movie that I was really super excited to see. Okay, there was a group called liningup.net, I believe, and the Force.net, I believe they were around at that time too. Maybe they weren't, maybe they came out later. But there was a big Coming Soon was also it. ComingSoon.com or ComingSoon.net. It was a big collective community back then of people who were excited about seeing the movie and stood in line. I took off work that day and stood in line for 8 hours, literally 8 hours. And I bought 3 tickets, one for the midnight show and 2 more for the following, well, for that day. So the midnight show, and then I think another one was at 5, and then another one again at 9 o'clock. And I watched all 3. And I did a review for that particular movie on christiananswers.net. I'll leave a link to that there. You can see my review of it. And you can see how excited I was at the time because the movie really didn't hold up. I gave it a really good review. I did note some of its problems. I did note some of the problems in the movie. But I was pretty much still fresh off seeing it. When I saw that movie, I think I posted it like at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so you can see that. But anyway, my point is that I liked the film. It was decent. And then 3 years later was the Attack of the Clones. I saw that. I was in Tennessee at the time, consulting. And that was good, but someone had spoiled it for me. They spoiled the last scene with the last lightsaber battle scene was spoiled with me. And and some of it was spoiled to me as well. So I was like, well, I thought it was decent, but it kind of got over the rails in terms of the last scenes. But I didn't think it was a disaster. And then 3 years later was 2003, and that was Revenge of the Sith. I thought that was great. It had some parts in the middle that I thought were kind of hokey. Some of the acting was was kind of hokey, but overall the darkness of the movie, and I thought it was the best of the 3, not even close. And so that was it. So we thought that was the end of Star Wars, and we thought that was going to be the last we'd see outside of comic books or maybe a TV show here and there, because Lucas himself said it was done. And so when Disney announced that they were going to buy buy Lucasfilm, it was a really fun day. I remember I believe that was Halloween. I think that was Halloween I remember where I was. It was like October 30th or October 31st, right around Halloween. And so we were really excited. I even saved the podcast on theforce.net. I saved that, listened to it many times. And so we thought, what could go wrong? And when The Force Awakens came out, 3 years later, I believe, which was in, I'm gonna get my dates wrong here. Whenever that came out, I can't think right now. When that came out, I stood in line. Well, we didn't stay in line then because we didn't have to, but I bought 3 tickets for that day. I watched it. I really love it. I still think it's a good movie, but in retrospect, because of what happened with The Last Jedi, it essentially ruined the movie. So, it's almost as if the movie would have been awesome if J.J. Abrams' vision would have been able to be seen. Now, what we're hearing now is, and this is where I'm going to let you go to the links to get more details on. My understanding is this, is that when Disney bought Lucasfilm, they also optionally brought on George Lucas as a consultant, and he had a script treatment of all 3, a narrative of those. And from what I understand is that JJ took that and either used that or changed it up to create his own vision of the 3 films. Because if you recall, Lucasfilm, first of all, they hired Kathleen Kennedy as the person in charge of Lucasfilm, who was handpicked by George Lucas. She had worked with Steven Spielberg for many, many years, very successful in all of Steven Spielberg's films in the 80s and early 90s. And so she came on and she hired J.J. Abrams as the original director and Rian Johnson as the second director. And I believe Colin, I can't remember his last name. I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say it wrong, but he ended up leaving. The third director ended up leaving. But the thought process was for Disney to have directors who are new and untested, bring them in and let them have their own creative style. Similarly to what Marvel had done, where they basically took directors and they were able to come in and do their thing. However, they were under a showrunner, for the lack of a better term for movies, and Kevin Feige. He was the overall architect. He had the vision of everything. Star Wars never had that Kevin Feige-like person. They just gave the directors their ability to do whatever. And the way I think this whole thing went down was this. It was that when George Lucas appointed Kathleen Kennedy to be the president of Lucasfilm, she was going to be in charge of the vision going forward. She brought on all the directors. She brought on J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. J.J. Abrams, from what I understand, took the George Lucas treatment and either he revised it or he took it as is and set that in terms of his direction for The Force Awakens. If you know anything about J.J. Abrams, he likes this thing called the mystery box. And the mystery box is something basically is setting the direction without knowing the ending of it. So, and letting people come behind them and finish it up. This works okay on TV shows. He applied this really, really well. Well, I didn't see all of Lost, but I saw the first season and I thought it was okay. But he used that in Lost, and a lot of people complained because some things weren't tied up. It was they think that it wasn't really, really well succinct in terms of its narrative all the way through. But it does make for an exciting type of show. It keeps you guessing and so forth. So The Force Awakens was very good at doing that. I thought it opened up a lot of different areas of opportunity for the directors. Here's the problem. Rian Johnson came in and changed everything up. And I'll add spoilers if you guys haven't seen Star Wars, but Rian Johnson basically kills off Luke Skywalker. Let me just start in the beginning. In the very beginning opening scene, when he has this lightsaber that was his dad's, that he was holding when his dad, Darth Vader, cut his hand off. He saw it for the first time in 30 years. And what does he do with it? He tosses it over the cliff. And very disrespectful. And it's almost as if that's a slap in the face to the fans. And I get to that a little bit later. And so that goes on. And then we have Rey, who doesn't have a family, or who parents don't know who she is, or she's a nobody. That was set up in the first one, potentially. You have Snoke. He was the big bad, but of course he was killed. And so all these things happen, and you just don't know. And then, not to mention, I can talk about the different characters, how Poe was a complete imbecile. And you have, Finn, who had nothing to do the entire show. And then you had the character from Game of Thrones. I can't think of her name. The Silver Stormtrooper. See, I haven't really been involved in Star Wars in so long. I forgot all the stuff. Had I known this, had done this video a year ago, I would have known all this stuff. But I just basically forgot all this stuff. But the Chrome Trooper, she was killed off, and that was something that people look forward to seeing. And so it was just Rian Johnson just doing this thing and not having any clear direction. And so now, what ended up happening was The Last Jedi tremendously underperformed. It grossed $1 billion, but it really should have grossed closer to 1.8. 1.8 in my opinion. It easily could have grossed 500 million extra had it been just a decently put together film from a fan perspective, and from just keeping the narrative the same going through from the first movie. So let's go ahead. So then Solo comes out. And that doesn't do very well. In fact, it flops. It's an outright failure. It actually loses money, from what I understand. I believe it actually lost money if you take everything into consideration. And so here's another speculative thing, but there was a report that, I think it was Grace, came up with this report that there was a conference call with Disney, Pixar, Marvel, and it was Bob Iger, who's the president of Disney, basically gave Kathleen Kennedy the business on this conference call, saying, that effectively he wanted to get rid of her, but he couldn't for whatever reason. And they're going to move her to a lesser position, and they're going to try and correct things and put it on a different path. And so now we're at episode 9. And so, well, let me just back up just one little bit to bring this back into focus. So why was Kathleen Kennedy put the blame for this? Okay. Well, again, in these links I'm going to put below, you can see for yourself. My understanding is this, from what I've seen, is that Kathleen Kennedy essentially wanted to make a narrative of feminism in Star Wars and social justice warriors and the whole wokeness to be brought to Star Wars. You could see that in the Last Jedi. It was there. And Rian Johnson, this is what I think happened. She had that initial thought. J.J. Abrams, even though he was not necessarily against that, had his own ideas. And I believe that the story for Force Awakens set that tone up, but it was not over the top. I thought it was there. It was fine. I thought Force Awakens was great. I really do. I think by itself, as a standalone film, I think it's fine. I think it's decent. As a Star Wars film, I think it's horrible because it just is not worth watching again. Why go back and watch The Force Awakens when you know, at the end of it, Luke Skywalker is going to be this, this hermit who almost like a coward who's hiding out and who has no respect for what happened before and throws the lightsaber over the cliff and is just this total, he's just a horrible person, and it's like, whatever. So who wants to see that? And so I think that's what ended up happening. But what happened really was because they didn't have a showrunner in place like a Kevin Feige. They bring in Rian Johnson, who based on his comments to the fans after the fact, who was very nasty to the fans. And that's another thing. Disney treated the fans horribly. And a lot of the surrogates in the media treated the fans horribly. Because if you don't like the movie, you're racist, you're misogynistic, you're homophobic, you're whatever. And, you're some right-wing troll. And that's, again, one of the reasons why this channel is why it is because this whole woke crowd mentality is just destroying everything that it touches. And so when Rian Johnson gets into the helm, he does his thing and no one's there to check him. And Kathleen Kennedy basically is being held accountable for that. And so with this new Star Wars trailer, I'm sort of optimistic with it. I see some things in it that make me skeptical, but I am not excited. I will not see this movie. It's almost hard to say this, but I probably won't see this movie in the first week of it coming out. I probably won't even see it in the first month of it coming out. I don't know if a friend pays for me, I may go. But I have seen every single Star Wars movie, including the original, 1977, in the theater, in its initial showing. So yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about when they brought Star Wars out again in the 90s. I saw Star Wars as a 7-year-old in the theater with my family. And I remember where I was. Empire, same thing. Return of the Jedi, same thing. And of course, the prequels. And so this will be the first time. And I think part of it's because it's no longer Star Wars. I watched all the Clone Wars. I binge watched that. That was fantastic. The Clone Wars is amazing. If you haven't seen that, check that out. I thought Rebels, after a shaky first season, was really good. That last season, oh my gosh, they had so much cool stuff in there. Epic type stuff in there. That was good. This new series is out now. I have no idea. I don't even know what it's called. I'm just really a disgruntled, disenfranchised fan. So with Game of Thrones starting tonight, my focus is on that. But I want to do a video on Star Wars to basically talk about that and my feelings. So I will keep, posted on this. But as long as Star Wars keeps doing this social justice warrior wokeness stuff, and I will say this last thing. Kathleen Kennedy, in the videos I will put up below, again, for the last time, I'll put this link down there. It's pretty much 2 links will cover everything for this video. She basically had no intention of doing anything story driven. It was all about pushing forth the narrative, pushing forth females in these positions, which is fine. I don't care if everyone in Star Wars is a female. Just make sure the story is good. But it seems like when she was doing these videos, when she's doing these videos that I think Fortune magazine did this for her, she said her first thought was, I want a female lead. I want female this. It was never about the story. She never once talked about making a good story. I don't care to do an all Star Wars film if the story calls for it and it's a good film. This is a good film. I don't care who you put in there. I really don't. And that's the thing that the media doesn't understand. Star Wars fans do not care. We want good stories. It's as simple as that. And to be called racist and homophobic and whatever you want to call the fans is truly a horrible thing to do, especially considering Star Wars is not at the level of Marvel. Whereas with Captain Marvel, they were able to get away with that because they had transcended the fandom and gone into the mainstream. Star Wars is still a very niche fan base. It hasn't been around enough in terms of movies to get enough new people to bring the crowd to make it a popcorn film for everybody. It's still a niche film for just the fans. And until it's able to catapult itself outside of that and get into a broader audience where grandma wants to go and your 2-year-old wants to go, that's the only time that they can be able to do that wokeness because they're not going to have the people to actually support it. So I make a prediction quickly here that Star Wars Episode 9 is going to make less money than The Force Awakens. It still may get $1 billion, but I think it's going to be around 1.1, 1.2, and it will be the first time in the history for Star Wars that the third film in the trilogy makes less than the second. I could be wrong. If it's a really, really good film, and it should be a good film, if JJ does what he's supposed to do, he's got a big challenge because he's got characters that are gone, that are lost forever. Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. And, they killed off Han Solo, so he's no longer with us. And he's not a Jedi, so you can't do a Force Ghost with him. And so you just have Luke, so you can bring him back. You have Lando. So, I would say this real quickly, and I'm kind of getting off the thing here. If they bring Luke back in some sort of like, back from the dead kind of deal, where he goes out there and just totally just, does this thing, then I'll probably forgive everything. Because I've been pretty much spoiler on this movie all the way. I've been reading all the spoilers. That's another thing. I went into Force Awakens knowing absolutely nothing at all. I saw the first trailer and that was it. I knew absolutely nothing about it. This movie here, I don't care. I'm watching spoilers. So if I feel that from the spoilers that I read, if it's what I think it's going to be, I'll go see it, the first week. But if not, nope, I'm not going to go see it. So with that, I'm going to jump off here, and sorry for the bad video quality and the shaky cam, but again, I feel those who want to see Star Wars will see the hashtag and they'll watch it. Those who don't won't care. And quite frankly, I don't think this particular franchise is worth me spending too much more time on it anyway. So on the Game of Thrones, I'm going to check that out tonight, and I'll do a quick review of that as well. So if you like the content in this channel, please consider liking and subscribing. We take culture, TV, and movies, and we filter it to the right. And please check out some videos that we have above.